Alright guys, yesterday I went live on Facebook, just my personal Facebook, and I tied a fly. It seemed to be a pretty large hit. This is just for you guys on Instagram and, different forums and stuff who've asked me the same questions. I didn't really think about the fact that you can't see that live video, so I've had a bunch of questions on how to tie this little fly, which is a little grub or a maggot or any kind of insect, as well as this one. This is the one I've had the most questions on, so I'm going to be tying this version up today. It's the same exact fly as this one, except it has a little squirmy material, Squirmito, which is now available at Hairline, by the way. Caster's Squirmito. So what you're going to need, this is actually a new hook that I've been playing around with a lot. I really like this hook by Erick's Hooks. They're a new company out of Scandinavia. It's actually a size 8. It's for a Gammarus, a shrimp, scud type style hook. What you're going to do is taper the body a little bit and add some weight at the same time. For that, you're going to use 015 lead wire. It doesn't have to be 015. If you have a different hook, you just kind of want to closely match the gauge of the hook to the gauge of the wire. This is a slightly thinner gauge wire than the hook, but whatever. This is what I have sitting on my table. So you're going to want, 15, 20 something wraps, however many you feel works with the size hook and water depth and all that good stuff. So just wrap it around, you want to position the thread around the bend, so you're essentially building the bulkiest part of the body with this thread, if that makes sense. Don't use your good scissors for cutting lead or wire. I just did because it's sitting right there. Notice where the lid is in position, right on the bend of the hook. Next step, you're going to want some super glue. This is important because the step after this likes to slide around on you. So super glue that and put a little right in front of the super glue. Next step is important. This is how you're going to build the body taper of the fly. For that, I use a uni stretch. This is just white. You can play around with different colors of the underbody and get a pretty sweet looking effect after the whole fly is done, but this is just what I had sitting here from last night. So beginning right in front of the thread and catch it, follow it all the way down. Doesn't have to be super clean right now because you're just going to cover all this up, but lock all that lead down. Stuff builds up quick, so you don't have to use a uni stretch. I've used, let's see, I have a gel spun thread because I just had it laying here. But you can see this is how the uni stretch is. It's kind of like basically it's a yarn, very fine yarn, individual fibers, and it stretches out to be very thin and flat. It's really good for building up underbodies like this. I'm sure you've seen it before. It's cheap. So just keep working this. What you're going to want to do is a nice even taper all the way up and down the shank of the hook. Don't worry about the bumps because you could clean that up here in a second. You're going to want to go pretty far down the bend of the hook. That's another reason I really like this model hook, because the gap is it's pretty outrageous. They have similar hooks out there. You could use a little scud hook or a little grub hook. I've actually been playing around with the Fulling Mill hooks, size 10 I believe. Those are pretty good for this too. I just have these on my table and I've been really liking this hook a lot, so that's why I'm using it. So just keep building your underbody, make it sort of proportionate to the overall size of the fly that you want, and don't be afraid to cover up most of the hook shank, because I mean, it's one of the goals in fly tying is to hide the hook from the fish anyway, so just be careful of not filling the gap too much. Doesn't really necessarily matter on this fly. because the gap's so large and the actual body's so small, but you get the idea. So anyway, that's kind of what you're working with there. You see like a nice, decent little sized body, underbody I should say. Leave that hanging and get your other thread. This is a 6/0 Montana Fly Premium Dark Brown. You could use whatever, just most of the flies, that little maggot flies, have like a darkish brownish black head. So this kind of works for that. Just kind of catch the hook. Catch the tag end and the loose end of the uni-stretch in one hand. And work it all the way back down. Just at the same time. Get your nice fancy scissors. A lot of people ask me about these too. These are actually Deer Creek scissors. Very sharp scissors. If you don't know, I have at least, I don't know, maybe 40-ish pairs of scissors. Those are some of the best I've used. If you don't really, you know, aren't aware of it, most of the scissors come from the same place in Pakistan anyway, so they're pretty much all the same when they first come out of the box. Anyway, go ahead and keep on tapering, tapering, tapering. This kind of fills in all the little bumps that the uni-stretch kind of gives out because the thread is so thick and this is so thin. So you get the idea. Just keep working it. Your next step is to grab some Squirmito material, squirmy, wormy, whatever you want to call it. This stuff is freaking awesome. A lot of people hate it. I shouldn't say a lot. Some people hate it, and those people I don't really care for anyway. They're all about, you know, I call them purists, but they only use, you know, feathers, strictly natural materials. Life's too short, people. Go catch a damn fish. Anyway, this is my #1 question about this fly, is how do you attach this thing efficiently? Some people have difficulties. I've had plenty of difficulties until I kind of stumbled across this way. I'm pretty sure I made it up, but from my understanding, other people tie it this way too, so awesome. Anyway, get your little tail about that much. It's already pre-tapered on the one end, so you don't have to melt it or anything if you want it to look good, but the fish don't really care. Catch it. This is extremely loose wrap, by the way, no tension whatsoever. I grab both of them, form a V in my hand, kind of get that out of the way. Just barely touch on the hook and advance your thread. What this does is it's not super tight here, so it's not going to cut off the material. A lot of people have that problem. Then you're going to want to put one finger right on that point and stretch the material over the hook a little bit. Catch it with your thread, pull it a little bit, advance your thread, and keep repeating the same process. What this is going to do is create a nice taper over the back, a little bit of bulk, but it's not going to be extremely, just a gross amount of bulk. Keep repeating this process all the way up the hook until you get to the hook eye. If you haven't noticed yet, I like working with my hook sideways. It just kind of lets me see where I'm at a lot better. Mostly because I have the hook down. Some people like it right at eye level, which I can't tie like that at all. It is freaking annoying to me. Sometimes I have my scissors in my hands and just kind of want you to poke your eye out, and it's not for me. I can't do that either. Anyway, now you're at the eye of the hook, wrap right in front of it, and there you go. So it's a nice clean flat body. It's very well secured. It's not going anywhere. And you don't have any kind of crazy bumps or anything you got to mess with. So now take some thread out and work your way back. I use really wide wraps here just to kind of get it out of the way. Now we're going to clean up this piece. It's way too long. Just cut it to the length you think you're going to need. That looks pretty good. We might clean it up a little bit later. Keep working that taper. Clean up some of the little bubbles. But as you can tell, that's the best way I have found to attach the Squirmito material to a hook without it being just a really big disaster mess when it's finished. I've seen some guys who attach it in their back and then actually wrap it polymer around the hook, which is cool. It looks really cool, but it's still, you know, really not a very durable material, to be honest with you. If you're going to do it that way, wrap it around the hook, I really, really suggest covering it with a resin after that, flexible resin. I'll get to that later. My explanation of that anyway. This is another very, very important part. It comes in, looks like a doctor's glove, like a rubber glove basically, which is pretty much that's what it is, but it's called Virtual Nymph Skin. It's the original Nymph Skin material. I could name probably 4 or 5 rip-offs of that stuff. This is still the best in my opinion. I've used literally every brand that's available. I don't know what it is about it. It's just the perfect thickness, perfect width, has the perfect give, and it has some really cool colors. This is the translucent cream color. This is probably the best color for a grub in my opinion. What you're going to do, you're going to cut one end to a point. That's going to help taper the body up again. If you haven't noticed, I really like tapering stuff on my flies. It just looks really, really cool and more natural. Catch it by the tip and pull the material backwards while you wrap it backwards to the tying point, original tying point. Okay, now keep working that body taper all the way up. If you see my light flashing, I'm sorry, I'm trying a different light. This is kind of an old one. It's flickering, it's old, but it's probably not going to give like as big of a glare as it did last night with my really expensive light. So if you're watching that, sorry about that. I watched the replay of the live video and it was, you really couldn't even see anything. So yeah, whatever, you get over it. You got this now. So you can see how the body looks now before we wrap anything. It looks pretty cool. You still see some gaps in there. We'll take care of that. The next step, if you want it to look really good, take your time. I'm not going to do it super slowly to get like a perfect ribbing or whatever. You could do that, but this is just a little video, so whatever. You're going to want the most tension in the back. As you pull, you get more tension. That's kind of common sense. So most tension, less tension towards the middle because you wider body, wider gap, and then more tension again towards the head. If you look at the actual grub, you can see here's the finished product. Most tension, less tension, less tension, or more tension. Wow, that is ridiculously difficult to say. I don't know why. More tension, less tension, more tension. Anyway, so more tension, pull, wrap it sort of over itself, but not really. Create a rib body. That's why this stuff is really cool, because you can control different aspects of it. Now you're slowly letting go of the tension. Now you're pretty much at the middle of the fly, so you have the least amount of tension. Keep wrapping. Keep wrapping. Now you're working the front of the fly, so you're going to start adding more pressure. If you need to pause for a second, just use your other hand and tap it down to keep your position. Keep wrapping, more tension. More tension. And then full tension again all the way at the head. So catch that a couple times with your thread. Work it behind it, just like that a couple times. Secure it really well. You don't want this thing unraveling on you if you just spent that time wrapping it. It's not a huge deal, but it is annoying when you tie a whole bunch of them. Now, when you cut this material off, some people just cut the side and rip it. You could do that, but if you stretch it pretty well, not only will it tighten up right here where you, towards the head, through the thread, if you will. If you pull it, cut it real close, you have absolutely no tag end left, and you still have like, that's enough for a whole nother fly right there. Set it to the side. Now, you're going to build your little head with the thread, because this is the little grubby head. Just make some clean wraps. Tie it off and make a clean little head. You don't have to be super precise with the number of thread wraps or anything on this. It's just a fish catcher. Well, it's looking pretty decent. So just leave your head. If you work with your hook sideways like that, it just works a lot easier. It's just, you can do whatever you want to. Just, that's the best way I found. Now just whip right over that. I like to do it twice, as I've said in every single video and stuff I've done already. Paranoid. We're going to cover all that up anyway. So now the fly's basically done. You could totally fish it just like that if you wanted to, but let's get wild with it. Now, you could really see the ribs, but we're going to make that pop just even more. Another question I get asked a lot is, how the hell do you color it like that? This is a fabric marker that I got for 35 cents at Hobby Lobby. It doesn't have to be a fabric marker. You could use a really expensive fly tying marker or a specialty marker. Just whatever you want. The color is marker. It's that easy. This is just a light brown color. The trick to this is, fix your fly just a little bit. The trick to this is you're going to go the opposite direction of the rib. What that means is when you wrap that material, it stacks on itself like this, so the natural rib is right between the stacks of material. If you go this way, you're not going to catch any of this marker inside of that rib. If you go this way, you're going to catch all the marker right inside the rib, and that's what really makes it pop, just like this. So go the opposite direction with the marker. And when you do this, the ribs and the marker kind of create like a splash of marker going backwards. You'll get it on your vise and you can probably your finger a little bit, don't worry about that. But you don't really want it on the Squirmito material, so I pull it away from the skin, start right at the back, and just work your way forward. Now it's going to look like you're just coloring this thing brown, which yes, you sort of are, but you're more or less just getting it in the ribs, and I'll show you that in just a second. There's a guy driving through my backyard with a dirt bike. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I probably need to go see what the hell that's all about. Don't get shot, man. Anyway, just keep working forward with it, and you can start seeing the ribs take some really nice color here. I don't know how well you can see that on there. I haven't even looked at this yet, but it got a little bit of splash on the material back here. It's cool. So now you got that all markered up, you can start seeing there's like little puddles of marker that kind of collect, and to clean that off, just take your finger and just kind of dab it, just like this. That's going to do is pull up all the marker puddles off the side, and your ribs are going to stay really cleanly marked with that marker. That's really why I like this material a lot. It just works with you. It's very user friendly. You can make anything really look good with this stuff. Anyway, you can sort of see where I'm going with this. Now, to make this a lot more durable, and it just makes everything just kind of blend together so it looks real, more real than this, you're going to have to use a resin. Now, I've tried different resins, different types of resins, different brands of resins. I've tried different head cements, different lacquers, and this is the best I've used for this material. My reason being, the Squirmito material is flexible. The Virtual Nymph skin is very flexible. So your resin has to be flexible when it's cured. I have caught fish on even just a hard version or a thin hard version, and it has fallen apart on me. Reason being, the resin creates a hard shell around the flexible material. While that material still moves, even if it's really hot outside, it's going to expand and whatever. So your resin needs to be flexible if you want your fly to last. This is going to work really well with the rest of it. It's not going to crack. It's not going to peel off. It's going to last you several more fish. The secret to doing this is you ran the marker the opposite way to catch the rib. Now you're going to put the resin up front and work it backwards to not destroy the ribbing that the marker created. If that makes any logical sense, I don't know. It works for me. What you're going to do, take your flexible resin, Put a drop right at the head, drop right at the head, drop right at the head, drop right at the head. Take a bodkin, and while continually spinning the vise, work it backwards. Do not move it forward. You're going to ruin your rib. So I'm sorry if there's like an awkward silence or whatever. I could sing if you want, but you get the idea. You're going to need a little bit more rhythm. Just put some more at the head. If you keep rotating your vise too, it kind of gives it a nice cylindrical, smooth cylindrical effect, which is cool. I'll show you more of that when I go to cure this. Now, it doesn't have to be like a really thick layer of resin. You could play around with how much you want on here and how much you don't. I like to really seal up everything. It just looks really cool. Some people don't even put resin on it at all, which, I mean, that works. It looks really good, but it's not going to last as long. So keep working this backwards. Don't go forwards. So, alright, you got the idea. Now that's pretty much on there. Loosen up your vise. If you have a Regal or a Stomfo version or anything, just keep it rotating. And while it's rotating, take your light and cure it. What this is going to do is set your resin in a perfectly cylindrical fashion around the material. If you don't have it moving, it might glob up on the bottom or on the top or wherever it wants to stop. So if you just keep it moving, it'll be perfect every single time. I have no idea where I learned that from. Probably some YouTube video somewhere. That's another thing. I mean, you guys can learn a lot just by watching and reading and researching and just playing around with the materials you have. You don't really have to have the exact materials everybody uses in every video. Just take little things out and play around with the concept, if you will, not necessarily the material, because all the concepts are pretty much the same at this point. Anyway, that's pretty much done at this point, guys. I hope you really enjoy it. Hope you catch some fish. It's pretty hard to tell in the video, but it looks pretty dang real. I've never seen a creature that looks like this in the wild, but that part's super real. The rest is just fish attractant. Let me tell you, the fish freaking love the Squirmito. You could tie it without it. Looks really cool. I'm sure you could catch some kind of weird fish on that, but this is where it's at, man, the money. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it.